is exactly what it sounds like.
Lovely.
Tunnels along the Western Wall. So the best place to start anything is where?
At the beginning.
It's a very good place to start. Very poignant this week with Charmaine Carr passing away. Anyway, if we open up the Bible, what's the first sentence in the Bible?
In the beginning.
The whole sentence.
God created the heaven and the earth.
How many people have been to Italy? Seen the Sistine Chapel?
Yeah.
Beautiful frescoes painted by Michelangelo. On
Yeah.
the ceiling, one of the most famous of the frescoes is the last day of creation. What's the fresco?
It's a dream.
It's this one.
Oh yeah, the connection.
Old guy on the cloud is God. Younger guy, he's not that young, down below is Adam, and the fingers have just split. It's the creation of man. So I always tell people, picture that in your mind, because we all know that picture. But go back to the very beginning, heaven and earth, you have to picture God's finger over here. This is a model of Mount Moriah. The peak of Mount Moriah is called the foundation stone. It's called that because according to tradition, when God starts to build the world, that's where he starts from. And then from here, he builds the world. So if you like Big Bang Theory, not the TV show, the actual Big Bang Theory, that's where it happens. That's the beginning of the world. To Jews, this is the holiest spot. Okay? There are loads of stories from the Bible that happened in this place. Name one.
The ark? No, yes? No. Okay.
Finding Isaac. Abraham brings his son Isaac, who's going to sacrifice him at the last minute. God says, don't do it. Here's
Oh,
a ram
yeah.
instead, and that's why Jews blow shofar. Right? Jacob's ladder. When Jacob's sleeping and the angels are going up and down the ladder, that's where he's sleeping. Cain and Abel, Noah, Adam. Loads of the stories from the beginning of time happen in this place. We jump ahead to King David. King David conquers the Jebusite city below in a battle, and then he buys this. Just think about that for a second. He conquers the whole city, but that he buys it. And it's a very pricey piece of real estate, because he paid 600 shekels in gold, which doesn't sound like a lot to us with the shekel today. Not doing so well. Right? But 600 shekels of gold during the time of the Bible is somewhere in the area of $22 million. So he conquered the whole city, but that he paid a huge amount of money for. And where does he get the money for? Kinda. It was one of those, what do they call them? Voluntary donations.
Voluntary. Yeah.
So each of the 12 tribes had to give 50 shekels in gold. The purpose of which is that for all time it would be understood that this spot, which is the holiest spot to the Jewish people, belongs to all the Jewish people. It doesn't matter what shul you go to, right? It doesn't matter what tribe you came from. It belongs to everybody, and it belongs to everybody equally. Okay? So, King David doesn't get to build the temple, though. Who builds the first temple? Solomon. His son, Solomon. Solomon builds the first temple, stands right on top. Stands for just over 400 years, until it's destroyed by the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar. And we all get exiled to Babylon. 70 years later, Cyrus, who's the king of Persia, conquers Babylon, and he likes us. And he says, go home. And some do, a very small percentage, but a group come back, reestablish the Jewish community in Israel, rebuild the temple, and then send letters. There's no email there, right? Back to Babylon and say, we built the temple, there's a community here, come, we're here. That always reminds me of 1948 in Israel. They're like, we're here, there's a state now, where is everybody? Took them another 60-something years to start actually coming, but yeah. So, here's what happens. People who went to Babylon as teenagers come back as the elders of the community, and when they get back to Jerusalem, they start crying. What is this? You told us you rebuilt the temple. When I was that high, I saw the temple. That doesn't look like the temple. Solomon's temple was like a palace. Now there's a bungalow. Nobody's impressed. For hundreds of years, the Jewish community talks about the fact that the second temple is nothing like the first. Until comes along a king called Herod who decides he's going to renovate. He's going to take this small, modest building. He's going to make something so fantastic that people will talk about even this temple in the same way they're still talking about Solomon. So what does he do? Mountains here in the northern end, they dig them out. That becomes the quarry. Okay, it doesn't look impressive in my hands, but it's 3 mountains. It's a lot of stone. On top of this, they build what we still call today the Temple Mount, which is the huge structure out there behind us. It's the size of 18 football fields. Because when we talk about the Temple Mount, we're talking about this. When we're talking about Mount Moriah, we're talking about the mountain that, de facto, you can't see anymore. The only piece of it that you can see is actually the foundation stone, the peak of the mountain, which is sticking out. Okay? And 2,000 years ago, it would have looked like this. A little bit about the Temple Mount. Okay. Temple Mount wasn't just some big synagogue, it was much more than that. It was both the spiritual center of the nation and the administrative center of the nation. So all of the government agencies, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Finance, court systems, everything existed on the Temple Mount with the spiritual center. But the main building, which was the Great Hall, which is this building in the shape of a T, stood in the center. And if you look out at today what's in its place, the Dome of the Rock, times by 3. And you'll get an idea how big this was. Okay? So what did you have here? You had 2 rooms. So the first room was the Kiddushim, which is the holies. Into here would go the Kohanim, the priests, but only during the time they were doing service. They weren't full-time employees of the temple. They were regular guys with regular jobs. They were doctors, lawyers, chiropractors, beekeepers, shepherds, whatever you can imagine. Anything except anything that had to do with electronics or computers. 2 weeks a year they had to close shop and come do service. So inside that room was the menorah, the golden candelabra, the shulchan, the table with the 12 showbreads, 1 loaf of bread for each of the 12 tribes, the Torah, the incense, and all of the things that they would use for the service. The back room that was over here, which was directly above, okay? The foundation stone is the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies, and into here only went one man, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, and he only went in there on one created year. What day? So the holiest guy goes into the holiest place on the holiest day of the year. Now, during the time of the first temple, there might have been the Ark. You were talking about the Ark before the Ark of the Covenant. But by the end of the first temple, the Ark is gone. We have no idea where it is. There's loads of traditions of where it might be, but we have no idea. So during the time of the second temple, inside the Holy of Holies is the foundation stone alone. Okay. The big computer isn't working, so I'm going to try and do it on the small computer. If you just have a look, this is what we consider the wall outside today, the part that's sort of bright. Okay, but that's the western wall in its entirety. You see that there's 2 styles of stone. If you move over that way, you'll be able to see. 2 styles of stone. The style that's on the bottom are the stones that we know and understand. They're the Herodian stones, with big stones with the frames around them. Anywhere where Herod built, you've got that style. That was his signature. So if you go to Masada, Herodian, Caesarea, you always see that style. The style that's on top is different. It's called pilaster. The stone goes in and out, so it looks like pillars. Okay? He only built that in a couple of places. And all of the section here at the Temple Mount was destroyed. So we don't have any here. But if you go to Hebron, the Cave of the Patriarchs, which was meant to be a twin to the Temple Mount, you can see what it looks like perfectly because it wasn't damaged at all. Okay? You see the much more detailed of what was going on in the Temple Mount. There were 4 entrances from the western wall to the Temple Mount. These were the entrances that were used on a regular basis. Okay, because the residential center was up there on Mount Zion behind us, where today you have the Armenian quarter and the Jewish quarter. So people are going from one mountain to another. There's usually a valley in between, so you're doing this, which is great if you're on Weight Watchers. Otherwise, it's really annoying. So they build a bridge. Right? And there's this huge bridge that you now step on and just walk across. The arch that's over here, I know it's hard to see, but that's where we're standing. This is that arch of the bridge. Okay, so there were 2 that were up here from the staircase, here from the bridge, and then 2 that were down on the street. What was along the western wall 2,000 years ago was the main marketplace in Jerusalem. So it was the commercial center. If you like, it was the original Wall Street. Okay. So this is the aerial view. Okay. You can see that if this is where the Holy of Holies is, the western wall is the closest. So here's how we end up with the western wall. 70 CE. 70 CE, who destroys the second temple? The Romans. Yeah, the Philistines didn't destroy anything. They're just a pain in the neck. The Romans destroy the second temple. Okay, Titus and the 10th Legion. Where do the Jews pray now? Still on the Temple Mount. We still have a tradition of going up onto the Temple Mount. But here's the catch, we're not the ruling body anymore. So we have to get permission. Sometimes you have to bribe the guy. Sometimes it's once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year. So we don't have a consistency. So when we can't get up onto the Temple Mount, we go to the Western Wall because it's the closest of the 4 walls to the foundation stone. We want to be as close as we can be to the holiest spot, to where the Holy of Holies stood. Jumping ahead now to the late 600s and the Umayyads. Okay, the first Muslim dynasty, they built the Dome of the Rock. on top of the rock. Right? And then more and more people start coming to live in the city, and they have this brilliant idea. Let's just build the whole city on arches. Instead of having people go up and down the valley, that bridge was a good idea, so let's just build the whole city on bridges. And they build up the whole city. What you end up with is the valley is filled, and everything is built up on that level. Okay? Except what they did is they also used the Western Wall as one wall in their houses. Why build four when you get away with three? It's less work. So they use the Western Wall, and then they build 1, 2, 3. So now you've got houses all along the Western Wall. So now we have no access at this point to the Temple Mount, and no access to the Western Wall. Where do we pray? At home, in a synagogue, on the street corner, in the marketplace, where you get 10 guys together. Until 1583, sorry. 1583, there was an earthquake. We're actually on a fault. And every once in a while we get earthquakes. There were some really big ones in medieval times. We've only had some smaller ones in the last 20 years. But what ends up happening is this little piece of the wall that's over here, the building that had been attached to it collapsed. And you ended up with a little alleyway that was a little bit longer than where we're standing, the same width and open air. And if you've seen pictures from the Western Wall from 150 years ago, that's what you were seeing. Okay. 1967, with the Six-Day War, we took down the level of the wall by 8 meters, expanded it, and took out this abandoned neighborhood in order to create the plaza that exists today. So what we're going to do now is follow with the arches of the bridge, like we've already started, walking towards the wall. When we hit the wall, we're going to hang left, follow the wall under the city, and the things to look for are we're going to be walking on what will be the path of the marketplace. We're going to come to this entranceway, which is furthest in at the entranceway, and then we're going to come to the end here, where it's the end of the street and the beginning of the market. The end of the market street and the beginning of the quarry, where the mountains were dug out from. Okay, so let me put the toys away. Any questions before we go?